What's this one?
The Spinosaurus.
A Spinosaurus? What's this one?
Chicken.
A chicken?
Yeah.
That's a Calimimus.
That's
Mimus.
Gynosaurus.
What's this one?
Ankylosaurus.
Ankylosaurus, yes. What's this one?
Triceratops.
Triceratops. What's this?
A Brachiosaurus.
A Brachiosaurus.
It's a dinosaur. I know what a dinosaur.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I love to do sit-down videos. I do some mommy vlogs and other things, miscellaneous videos. I would love it if you'd subscribe and turn on your notifications and like this video. Today's video is going to be just a little bit different because it's a little more serious, but I think it'll be informative. I'm not putting this video out to scare anyone or to say, look how bad this situation is in my life. Because I know that God's got everything under control, but I do want to communicate to people what asthma can look like in a small child and different things to look out for and different things to maybe do to help your youngins. So I'm just going to tell my son's story about his asthma. We are very new into this asthma diagnosis. I'm super thankful for it because when the diagnosis comes, then comes treatment, and that obviously is a huge deal. So let's just hop right into this. Okay, so my son Hunter is 2 years old and he has been diagnosed with asthma as of 2 months ago. And I'll start by just kind of telling you a little bit of what that looked like when it started. So when it started, I honestly want to say he was probably like 3 months old, and he was in a little bassinet next to my bedside because I was still breastfeeding through the night. He was still waking up like every 3 to 4 hours, and I happened to notice, whether it was day or night or where he was sleeping, whatever, but mostly in the night because I was right next to him, that he would just cough a ton. And so I didn't think anything of it. His brother and his sister had reflux as babies, and so I was like, well, maybe he has reflux too. But then I started to notice, I'm like, well, he's not making funny faces. Like, you know, when babies have reflux, they spit up a lot and they make sour faces and they like tighten their abdominal muscles, and he wasn't doing anything like that. He was just coughing, and it was constant. And so I thought that was very strange. So I literally would clean from the ceilings to the floors, dusting, getting in the heating vents, and he would still cough. So I mentioned it a lot to his pediatrician, and they almost treated me like it was like my first child, like I was a little bit paranoid. And she said, you know, babies cough, not a big deal. Okay. So flash forward, he's a little bit older at this point. He's in his own room with his brother. He's coughing. And so I must have taken him to the pediatrician at least a dozen times and said, he's coughing a lot. And she said, well, he's a daycare baby, so, you know, they do that. They get viruses. And I said, but I don't understand why it's constant, why it's, you know, just weeks on end. And she said, well, one virus can roll into another virus. And I was thinking, you know, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't seem right. This is my third child and something does not seem right. My other kids didn't have this. They both went to daycare the same amount of time that he did. And there's no real reasoning behind when he coughs more or less. I couldn't figure it out. And so at this point I'm getting agitated because it just seemed like nobody was listening to me. Then last winter, I want to say, he had maybe half a dozen trips to the emergency room or the walk-in clinic, a lot of trips in the middle of the night because he would cough so hard that he would vomit. And so you can see the coughing is getting worse. It's not like, oh, he's a baby, he coughs. This is like, no, something is wrong. And so he would cough until he would throw up. And then he would just hold his mouth open like he was going to vomit some more. So here I am, and I'm, you know, holding a bowl, patting his back, saying, you know, it's okay, buddy, just get it out. And looking back, what's really hard is to recognize that he was having an attack, holding his mouth open, going like that. Like, that was him. I can't breathe. But he was not even 2. I mean, he turned 2 the end of this July. So he's 1.5, and he's coughing, he's throwing up, he's holding his mouth open. So we would take him to the emergency room, and they would look at him and they'd say, well, he seems fine now. And it's like, to me, it was extremely frustrating because he has this history. It's in his chart of coughing, and now it's at the point where we're going in the middle of the night. And to me, what's the most frustrating for me is that if we are here in the middle of the night and now he's fine, that is an attack of some sort. It's frustrating for me to say nobody put it together. Nobody said, well, he was bad enough 20 minutes ago and now he seems fine. He must have had an episode of some sort. I'm not saying like at the walk-in or the emergency room they should have diagnosed him with asthma, but what I am saying is someone out of the 20 plus times that we had spoken to a medical professional about these episodes, I wish someone would have been a little bit more diligent about figuring out what was wrong with this little guy. So then, a little bit later, there were situations where we would be asked to leave doctors' offices because of his coughing. One instance, I should say. I shouldn't say there were instances, but there was an instance where I was at the doctor's office for my daughter's well check, and we were asked to leave because my son was coughing. And so for me, I wanted to just rip my hair out because it's like, yes, I know he's coughing, but that's why I keep saying something's not right. Someone needs to figure this out. Like, he's coughing enough for you to be concerned about COVID, but you are not concerned about his well-being when I say 20 times this isn't normal. And now you're agreeing with me that it isn't normal, but you're afraid that it's COVID, so you ask him to leave. It's just incredibly frustrating. So, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just saying with young children, they don't like to diagnose because it's early. They're little. I don't know. I guess I don't really understand the reasoning fully why they don't like to diagnose someone so young, but I do feel like he's yelling right now. He kind of got cast aside because it didn't seem bad enough until it was really bad. So, then let me think. So, yes. Okay. So then what happened next was that I switched pediatricians, and I still felt a little bit talked down to, but she did seem to want to appease me a little bit more. So she said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to order a chest x-ray, she said, because the cough is kind of a concern. So she ordered a chest x-ray. And for those of you that have never had children to do a chest x-ray, or maybe your child is going to do a chest x-ray, I just want to convey that it seems really mean to put them through it, but it's definitely something that I think they should they should have their lungs looked at if this is a concern. So he's sitting on what looks like a bicycle seat, like a plastic bicycle seat, and then they strap his arms above his head, which is really, really hard to see. They strap his head around like a post that leads into the bicycle seat. So his head is pushed back, his arms are up, and he's sitting on this bicycle seat, and they are taking the images. And I have to say the X-ray technician was fantastic. She looked me dead in the eyes. She says, "You're going to remember this for the rest of your life." He won't remember it past today. And that helped a lot because he's screaming and he's crying, and he did not like it, clearly. So he had the chest x-ray. The chest x-ray came back normal, which I've been told if he's not having an attack or he hasn't been having chronic attacks at that time, it won't show. So I still am adamant about, and that's another thing, we have to be our kids' advocate. If you feel like there's something that's not normal, then please just like keep pressing and pressing, because it is so important. These little people, they can't speak up for themselves, and I'm so glad that I didn't let this slide. I didn't ignore my mama's instinct. So I said, this still doesn't jive with me. This is still not a good feeling for me. Like, this isn't normal. His X-ray came back normal, but that can mean a lot of things. Like, I just don't feel good. And she says, okay, his pediatrician. Okay, we'll send him to a pulmonologist. So she sends him to a pulmonologist. The pulmonologist is extremely detailed, extremely thorough. And I just felt like finally someone was listening, like truly listening. He wasn't a chart. He wasn't a name in a folder. She was just amazing. And she asked so many questions, and she actually even apologized for asking so many questions. And so she explained some of the things that it could be, but she kept pressing on with more questions and more questions. And she asked me, she said, what is your biggest concern in all this? And I said, my biggest concern is that he has asthma, and that it's undiagnosed, and it's going to get worse, and he's going to be untreated, and something bad could happen. And she looked me dead in the eyes, and she shook her head, and she said, it is not normal for a child to have a cold for more than 10 days. It is not normal for a child to cough so much that they vomit. It is not normal. It is not normal. It is not normal. And she just listed all the things that we've had issues with. And she looked me square in the eye. She goes, but he's going to be just fine. I'm diagnosing him with asthma. Let's get him started on a plan. I welled up and I was like, finally, a game plan and some answers. Thank the Lord. Like, I just was so relieved. Now, with that came a whole new set of emotions, though, because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, fantastic. If he has a coughing fit, we'll give him an inhaler. Good to go. He's fine. Whatever. When you're diagnosed with asthma, it is a whole new ball game. It is routines. It is always making sure you have certain things wherever you go. It is getting forms signed at your daycare or your school. It is regimens when they go into a certain zone. Like if he is in the yellow zone, which means he's starting to decline due to a virus or allergies or whatever, then you have a whole regimen. Like we had to do his emergency inhaler. His first regimen was 4 to 6 hours for 5 days round the clock to get him out of coughing fits. So it's not like, oh, he gets his inhaler once and he's good. It's like, no, we need to do a regimen for 5 days and hopefully it'll pull him out of it. So flash forward, RSV was going around the daycare, and that was probably about 3 weeks ago. And so he had a fever for about 12 hours and nothing else, no other symptoms. So we had to do that regimen I just spoke of. Well, now 3 weeks later, it was about 2 weeks later, he is having a coughing fit. And we're like, oh, what's going on? So we start giving him his emergency inhaler as we're instructed to do. It was a Friday night. He woke us up. No, we weren't quite asleep yet. And he woke us up with his coughing because he started to not only cough, he didn't vomit that time, but he was coughing so much in between. He's going, and so we knew we've got to take him in because we're doing his emergency inhaler and he's still gasping. So we take him in and they give him a nebulizer treatment. He's doing a lot better. We start doing round-the-clock treatments again, and by Sunday, it doesn't really matter. It was like 2 or 3 days later, he has another severe attack. We are out, it was Labor Day weekend, so we were out to eat as a family. We were house hunting, just looking around, seeing if we wanted, certain property, like if it was worth our investment, yada yada. So we were like going out to eat afterwards. So we're sitting in the middle of the restaurant, and he starts coughing. You can see people kind of looking, and they weren't looking out of concern for him. They were looking because they were afraid that we were sick and we're out to eat. And unfortunately, that's the time we're living in. So I get up from the table and I go out to the vehicle and I get his inhaler. I come back, we do the inhaler at the table, which is another weird thing. Like, that was a first to do his inhaler in front of people. And so people start looking even more because he's coughing. We're trying to get him to take the inhaler. And so Phil picks him up after the inhaler because he's still coughing pretty bad, still kind of gasping and wheezing. He takes him out. He stands up. Well, he's going to take him out. He stands up. He gets to the exit, and Hunter throws up everywhere in the restaurant. And so at that point, the waitresses were coming, and they're like, "Is he okay?" And my husband's like, "Yeah, he's having an asthma attack. I'm sorry." And so my husband leaves. They clean up the vomit. I'm trying to box up our food and pay the bill. This woman comes over to us and she's like, "I'm a nurse. What can I do?" And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, she's offering to help. She's not condemning us for bringing a sick child to a restaurant. And so I said, "He's newly diagnosed with asthma, and I don't know if you can help. I don't know what to do." And I'm trying to stay calm for my other two kids, but I'm pretty panicked. She's like, okay. She follows my husband out. I pay the bill. I meet her and Phil out in the parking lot. And at that point, Hunter's doing a lot better. She goes, I knew that he was either choking or having an asthma attack. She goes, "I've been a nurse for many years." And so she actually examined him right there in the parking lot. She was checking to see if he had, the sinking in. If a child is having an asthma attack, if you don't know, I'll explain. You see extra ribs. You see like holes in their stomach. Not holes, but it looks like they're sucking in. All their muscles are really working. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. So she noticed that he had like a concave area where his ribs meet. And so it started to become less and less the more his inhaler started to work. So we chatted for a few minutes, and I could have cried because she was just so selfless and so kind. And I, at the same time, felt awkward because we drew attention to our family. I felt like I was in a movie, people jumping up and like, "Can I help? I'm a nurse." And it was just a lot. So, long story short, we ended up taking him to the hospital again because he had like 4 attacks that weekend, severe attacks. It was honestly a work of God. It was a miracle. One of the times Phil found him in the middle of the night just because he had a gut feeling to check on him, and he was mid-attack, and it was very silent, and so it was just very traumatic. My husband said that he's been to Afghanistan, but the past 2 weeks have been the most scary of his life. So when you have a child that's going through something, it is very scary. But I don't tell you all this to discourage you or make you scared. I'm telling you all this to know, so you know that you're not alone. This is something that is common, and once things are under control, it's so much better. But know that these things aren't normal. This isn't, if someone tries to tell you, it's a virus or it's this or it's that, it's like you can put your foot down and say, no, it is not, this is not normal. Because if Hunter hadn't been on medication with this last regimen, this last sickness that he went through, then we would probably still be in the hospital with him. And that's a very real fact. And so, yeah, they had to double his dosage of his daily inhaler. They put him on a allergy med. They gave him steroids. They gave him, so he had been on almost, it was like a handful of medications to get him out of this. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not a matter of giving him an inhaler and then he's good. He has been on like a regimen to pull him out of this, because they describe it as green, yellow, red. He was in the yellow and he kept going into the red, and the red obviously is like the worst case scenario. And so you want him to always be living in green, always be living where it's like, okay, he's good to go. He's good to go to daycare. He's good to go to church. He's good to play with his friends and his cousins. So we feel very confident that things are going to be moving along from here, possibly allergy testing. We have a appointment with his pulmonary doctor in just a couple weeks now. But I just want to let you know he's doing fantastic, and we are hoping to be stopping his emergency inhaler tonight. We went every 3 hours, every 4 hours, and now we're at a point where we are doing like every 5 to 6 hours. And he's doing well. He's doing well, and we've been so sleep deprived. He had been, after that attack in the night where Phil found him out of gut feeling, or God, I think it was God. After that attack, he was sleeping in our bed because we didn't dare leave him alone. You know, you make things work based off of your situation. I never thought I would co-sleep. I always thought, you know, you got to set those boundaries, and they learn and they have their own space. It goes out the window, folks. Like when you're dealing with a sick child, it goes out the window. You do whatever you need to do to make sure your kid is happy, healthy, and safe. I can't tell you how many times I bribed him with donuts to take his inhaler. It is what it is. And now he's in a better space where he's feeling better. So now I can tell him, I'm going to give you your medicines. And he says, take my medicines. And he'll sit there and he'll take his inhaler. But that's not to say that he didn't thrash his body around and get himself sopping wet with sweat because he didn't want his inhaler. When they're feeling gross, they're gonna not want to tolerate it. They're done. I mean, imagine someone poking at you when you're feeling at your worst. So I just wanted to really put out his story. There are worse stories out there, and there are milder stories out there, but I just feel like at this season of my life, going through this, learning as much as I'm learning, that it's a shame to not share it. And I did look up some statistics, one of which that really stuck with me is 50% of children with asthma will outgrow their asthma. And so that was super comforting. 25% of those then have asthma again as adults. So they can have asthma, outgrow it, have it back. But the thing with that is the 25% that get it back as adults, they are wise to understand how to take care of their bodies at that point. So when your child is going through their adolescent years, the likelihood of them having asthma goes down dramatically. So I just felt like that was encouraging. That was super encouraging. And so I don't know. Like I said, I really wanted to share this video with you all so you can understand a little bit more. And I hope that it was encouraging. I really just wanted to share these things, honestly, like I said, not to scare you, but to show you that if your kid is going through these things, then the next step might be this, and the next step might be that. And to listen to your gut. If you feel like this isn't normal, then that's not normal. It's not normal. You know your kid better than anyone, so just press on. And I thank you so much for listening to my story. Oh, I did want to add, he did have x-rays following the initial x-ray, and then they do see things on his lungs. So if you have an x-ray and it comes back normal, that doesn't mean that there's no asthma there. That doesn't mean much, in my opinion. So just continue to press on and fight for your little ones, and thank you so much for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.